Hi, we're going to talk a little bit about pruning stone fruit today, which includes things like apricots and nectarines and plums and cherries, some of our most popular summer fruits. And pruning can seem a little bit complicated sometimes. It can be difficult to know what to do with these things, and some people get a bit frightened and just leave them to get bigger and bigger and less fruitful. Well, we're in the end of April, beginning of May now, and it's a good time to prune young trees, so anything up to about 3 or 4 years old. Anything older than that, you tend to prune in July and August. The important thing to remember is whenever you prune that it needs to be when the tree is growing. So we've got an apricot tree here. It needs to be when it's in leaf. And as I say, end of April, beginning of May is a good time to do some trimming. This particular tree, it's kind of in between, if you like. It's only been planted for about 3 years, but it's already got a decent branch structure to it. So I do most of the pruning in July and August, but there's no harm in doing a little bit of trimming now. I must admit, I don't do everything right on time, and I forgot to prune it. I didn't prune it in time last year, so there is quite a bit to do on this one. But just for now, at this time of year, I would just look at the tree and see if there's any branches which are growing into the middle, any which are dead. You know, we've had lots of frost, very cold over the winter, causes a bit of dieback on the tree, so anything which is dead can come out. Anything which is diseased, these trees do suffer a little bit with a couple of diseases, notably bacterial canker, which kills the branches back. You get sort of bleeding on the branches, the sap comes out, and it's a sign if you get dieback, that's bacterial canker. So anything that's dying back needs to come out. And also anything that's crossing and just misplaced, because you want to end up with a tree which is nice and open in the middle, and so the air and the light can get in and keep the diseases out and help the sun to get in and ripen the fruit. So just for now, all I'm going to do, had a quick look over the tree. It's already got quite a good crop of little apricots coming on. They'll be harvested end of July, August time. So for now, all I would do is cut off any low branches, because you want to try and keep the trunk clear at the bottom. They're not going to be very fruitful, they'll just get in the way. And you can see this one's planted in a border, so you want your plants around to get some light too. So I'm going to snip some of these off, just with a pair of secateurs. Just taking off some of the lower branches, so they're not going to be very productive, and you'll get more air and light into the bottom of the tree. In fact, you've got a bigger one here which is really growing in the wrong place completely, so I think I'm going to snip that one right off. Now, just do it with secateurs. That's it. Looks a bit brutal, but it really does help keep the tree a nice shape. There's a few other bits and bobs that need to come off. We've got a branch up here which has died back for some reason. Not looking very good, so we'll get rid of that. You can see it's just wilted. We did have a hard frost not so long ago, so I suspect that's just been killed by the frost, so that needs to come off. And then any crossing branches, you've got a branch here which is growing into the tree, so that needs trimming. In fact, I think I'll just take that right off, get rid of that. And then branches like this which are growing into the tree, they can come off as well. And that one's a bit of an awkward shape, so that one can go right off. Now, come July and August, what I'll do is to give it a much bigger trim, going all over the tree. And what I'll do is try and trim back a quarter of the branches by 2 years growth. Now if you look on this branch in particular, you can see once you get your eye trained to it, you can actually see that quite easily. So that's 1 year's growth, so that's 3 years old. There's another year's worth there, and you'll find that there's a knuckle on the branch where it stopped growing. So that's 1 year, then it stopped growing, 2 years, and that's 3 years. And what I'll do is go over the tree and take off a quarter of the growth back by 2 years, so back to there, to a shoot, an upward facing shoot, so just like that. But I won't do that until July and August. And what will happen is that you will take off some of the fruit, and you might think, oh, that's a real waste, and you really don't want to do it. But the thing is with lots of stone fruit is they produce far too much, and if you leave it all on, then you'll hardly get any fruit next year. They'll go into something called biennial bearing. They'll only produce fruit every other year. So it's actually a good thing that you're taking some of it out. But as I say, won't do that until July and August, and that will just be a quarter of the growth. I'll go around the whole tree and just take off a quarter of the growth from around the tree so it doesn't look odd. And the other thing that does is just to keep it smaller, because you can see they grow very quickly, they're very vigorous, and they'll just get outgrow its space if I don't do that. And hopefully by doing that, the other 3/4 that I've left will produce the fruit for next year, and then you just go like that every year, taking a quarter, so you're rejuvenating the tree as you're pruning.